Aba is a direct ancestor of Medusa.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, you can see it in the picture, and some of the early archaic.
Yeah, they had the very ugly.
Right, and some of the that straight-on face is the Medusa, the Gorgonion, and some of the early archaic.
But it probably came. Gilgamesh was so popular that it was even translated into Hittite and Hurrian. The tablets, fragments of tablets found it in Israel.
Well, also
Palestine, so it could well have been part of Western Levantine literary culture.
Well, also a lot of the Hebrew Bible was written around.
So that shows that the story had already reached the shores of the Mediterranean.
No, this was the first
Bronze Age.
This was the first bestseller in history, and even
so,
when you consider how difficult.
So what I'm saying is that the story was definitely accessible to people in that part of the world for 1,000 years before the Babylonians. His name translates as the scapegoat. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Robert Graves.
Oh, yeah.
And his theory of
Claudius.
His theory of the triple goddess.
No, I was the white goddess.
The white goddess, that's right. The triple goddess of
7th century, I believe, say 625 BC. The Jews were carried into captivity in 586 BC.
Yes.
Correct. And then the
Babylonians 538.
Excuse me?
And they stayed. The migration back happened at 538
version of it. It's the Garden of Eden is like that too. Creation. They tell the story, and then the story is told again.
Yeah, very much so.
There clearly were threads that were kind
the detail about Eve being created from a rib. Let's see, and so where they focused was on this mound on the left here. This is the remains of Nineveh. What it is really is just a mound of earth under which lies the ruins of Nineveh. But over time, people thought epic floating around. And let me get into that actually. Yes, literary history of the Gilgamesh epic. It says the earliest surviving great work of literature. Basically, it begins literary history of Gilgamesh begins with 5 Sumerian poems about the earliest surviving great work of literature. Basically, it begins literary history of Gilgamesh begins with 5 Sumerian poems about Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was the Sumerian version of Gilgamesh. That sort of variation occurs in other places as well, B and G. And so these were to establish absolute dates.
So but it is based on some sort of
not from the tablets. I don't think there's they didn't use an absolute. They didn't use an absolute calendar from year zero.
But whatever it was 5 poems on
the language. They use it in the stories. They repeat the story and they go or not.
When I say they repeat it, I'm thinking of when Gilgamesh sees a dream. The gods send Gilgamesh dreams. English poetry, Beowulf the initial consonants of words will frequently agree. I can't think of an example offhand. But each line of Akkadian verse will be, and bear with me, the example is much more interesting than the explanation. Each line of Akkadian verse can be divided into 3 or 4 smaller units that people didn't actually speak in the street. But the old Babylonian version, people could have spoken it in the street and sounded normal, we think. So basically, can we still understand Gilgamesh? I mean, it's a completely different culture. I'm sure you were puzzled by a lot, George, and that
there's awfully a lot of, so to speak, inappropriate activity going on, especially when they're talking about Gilgamesh sleeping with the first sleeping with the bride before the groom gets the bride, and then Enkidu having the fight with him, based on the fact.
Additional narratives that and this one happens to be, sort of Babylonian, as opposed to Hebrew or Greek. that it's not so much that, oh, the Greeks and the Hebrews, they all just read Gilgamesh. It's all Gilgamesh was the big antecedent.
I think it's unknowable. I think
from a very early Hebrew or Palestinian.
Oh, but the flood story.
No,
flood story was current in the Old Babylonian period, 1800 BC. So the Jews weren't even Jews. Babylonian texts were quite similar. But they provide different.
But also the old Babylonian texts were schoolboy texts.
Yeah. Oh, that's an important point. I forgot.
They were already. These were.
Can I intercede? I noticed that Ava wanted to ask a question for quite a while.
Oh, okay.
And she's never get a chance to talk. Ava, do you hear me? Go
yes.
ahead.
Yeah, my question is, we know that the tablets remain very difficult to read.
To send out birds to find dry land from your ark when it's stuck on a mountain. That's something, to me, that seems to be borrowed. It's not a general story about a jerk, someone who's a jerk as a young man who grows into a wise man. That could be very international, I think. Sexual initiation, where a prostitute, maybe one of you can enlighten me.
She's a hero. She's a heroine of the story.
Well, they practiced, we know from Herodotus, the Babylonians practiced cultic prostitution, where
the sacred
aristocratic women would go spend time in the temple in service to nuns. They would never have sex. They remained virgins. So it worked both. I've never understood it, frankly, what the psychological motivations are. But Shamhat
it's like Vespalka. It's like Vespalka from Rome, the ones that held. Yeah.
You mean the Vestal Virgins?
Vestal Virgins.
Yeah.
As I said before, her name actually means head of shame, right?
Oh no, it's the same.
I'm joking.
Though, I hope you're joking.
Of course, but in English, don't you?
The root is connected to Sameach in Hebrew.
English, don't you?
The root is connected to Sameach in Hebrew. Happy, joy. Chag Sameach, happy holiday. It seems to be the same root.
Hold on, Chag Sameach, as we say during the Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, well, if you notice, there's a sh, an m, and an h in that name, and that at is the feminine ending. But Enkidu, as I said, is compared to a rock, which is a masculine image of strength. The word used in Akkadian is Kitsu. However, Kitsu is phonetically very close to the word Kezru, which is, I won't go into the whole structure of cults in Babylonia, but they had cultic.
Explain the ancient aura and the city-states. I want to thank John. This was incredible. This is next level. It's great work. Fantastic work. And you know what? And that's why I got to bring awareness to this group, because format, obviously you can, suggest format, but I don't want to just to keep it as the, you tell people what they read about. I want to have a topic flowing and people giving their idea as we had it today. Not the fact that it has to be as detailed and, obviously this was the, next level.
All right, I will.
The Pacific War, Pearl Harbor, or we're getting to Pearl Harbor, taking our sweet time. John, this was incredible. Thank you for everybody to log in. Anybody have any other questions or you want to discuss? Or, I still haven't jotted down everybody's ideas from last time you guys gave me. I have to put it all.
Oral Sumerian recitation in, I guess it was Sumerian, or was it Akkadian?
No, that was Akkadian.
Akkadian in a Massachusetts with an Massachusetts
I know,
accent.
It's very strange.
Very strange and wonderful.
Yes, thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic job.
Thank you, John, and have a nice evening, guys.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you, Zach.
No,
Bye-bye. Good night.
Do I have to do anything now, Zach?
No, it's recorded on the Zoom.
Oh, good, great.
Thank you. Just send me the other one.
Yes, I will tomorrow.
Thank you, brother. All right, no problem.